Christ is king, it's where we belong. Stay with the dream, don't lose your way. Right way's the fire that'll light the day. Keep it simple, let the moment arrive. 3-8 trap keeps the hope alive. Hold on tight till the signal's near. Right way's the trail, we're breaking through fear.
Good morning, fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for November 11th, 2025. Happy Veterans Day to all the veterans out there. Thank you so much for your service. I very much appreciate it. And thanks to the families who have to suffer along with those folks that are gone to serve their country. So thank you so much for everyone, and happy Veterans Day. Let's take a look at what we've got going on here today. First, let's take a peek about what happened overnight. First off, if we look at Asian markets, a little bit of mix in Asia last night. Nothing major, but we had Australia down just modestly, $17.10 or 0.19%. Hong Kong up modestly at 47.35 or 0.18%. South Korea up 33.15 or 0.81%, while the Nikkei fell 68.83 or 0.14%. When we take a look at India, up 120.60, that is 0.47%, our biggest gainer in Asian markets last night. And our biggest loser in Asian markets last night was a whopping decline of $15.83 in the Shanghai, 0.39%. If we take a look at European markets this morning, European markets are holding gains across the board. DAX is up 51.25 or 0.21%. FTSE is up 92.77, 0.95%, and the CAC is higher by 57.32 or 0.71%. If we take a look at U.S. futures this morning, well, kind of modest here in U.S. futures as well. At this very second, we have the Dow futures up 9 points. We have the S&P 500 futures down $13.25, and the NASDAQ futures down 98.25. So a little bit of back and forth here after a zooming move yesterday as we head into Veterans Day. Let's take a look at a few other details out there. If we take a look at bond prices here this morning, bond prices are moving up just slightly. We've got the 2-year bond still holding in there at 3.59%, but our 10-year bond has moved up to 4.12%. We've got the 30-year bond has also moved up at 4.71% here this morning. So we'll have to keep an eye on those. If we take a look at what's happening with the U.S. dollar this morning, well, U.S. dollar a little bit weaker. We're still holding in here on that upside trend and still trying to hold on to some support. So no harm here just yet. We'll have to watch that carefully though. As we see those bonds moving up, that usually can signal more problems here, more volatility in the dollar. So watch that carefully. And then if we take a look at what we've got going on in precious metals, well, those metals after a big zooming day yesterday are still doing pretty well. If we look at gold this morning up $25.10 an ounce, 4,147.10 an ounce here this morning. Silver is also higher this morning after a zooming day yesterday. We're up 63 cents at 50.94 an ounce here this morning. Copper Copper had one big day yesterday. At the moment, just slightly lower here, down 3.5 cents in copper this morning. But platinum is still trying to move higher, gapping a little bit more this morning at $14.50 an ounce, or 0.91%. And palladium is also higher by 25.40 this morning, up 1.75%. Now, with the bonds moving up, we're having a little bit of pullback in most of the cryptos here this morning. Bitcoin, after a good pop up yesterday, down 720.45 a coin, or 0.68% here this morning. Ether is up, and the only one at the moment that's just a little bit higher by $4.75, or 0.13% this morning. And Solana is down $3.83, or 2.28% here this morning, and mostly red across the board there in cryptos. So let's take a look at what's going on in oil. If we take a look at USO, trying to move a little higher this morning, reversed in there yesterday after going down, now trying to punch through this downtrend I've got drawn in here and come back up and challenge fairly significant area of price resistance here. So we may have begun a little bit of a higher low in here on USO, and that opportunity that oil may be turning back around. Right now, oil in here is up $60.47 a barrel, at 35 cents higher. We've got Brent also 35 cents higher at 64.41 a barrel, and natural gas is lower this morning by almost 2 cents. Been challenging this resistance here in the chart. Nice little resting pattern potentially setting up in UNG. If we take a look at BOIL, you can also see that resting pattern setting up in here and looking pretty good overall. So keep an eye on some of those natural gas plays here in the market. All right, so what does all that mean? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Tuesday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I truly, truly appreciate it. Let's take a look at these index charts, see if we can figure out how we might want to approach the market for today. Remember, we want to look at these charts for what they are, not for what we want them to be, and we want to shake off that bias and really focus in on the details here in the market. Well, after yesterday's big zooming move in here on the diamonds, we did pop through this little area of resistance in the chart, and honestly, I probably need to raise that up just a tiny little bit, but it's looking pretty good in here. So if the bulls can continue to follow through here to the upside, I'm going to look right in through here and say there's kind of a critical area of resistance right there that we're going to need to break. So if we can continue to follow through here today, then push on up, see if we can challenge this area. Then I think if we can get through that up there, we have a pretty good chance that we could stretch on up and hit some new record highs. Because remember, these are not all that much further here to get a new record high close in the diamonds and get that headline that the market seems so desperate to hold on to. Now, if we have any bearish activity in here, and I think today's going to be kind of critical on what the follow through is today, and we may see kind of a light day because there's not a whole lot in earnings or economic reports. Being Veterans Day, there may not be much going on here except for maybe some political news. Senate did pass the bill last night, moving things forward. That now moves over to the House for approval and then onto the president's desk to reopen the government. But it looks like at this point it's probably going to be later on in the week. So keep that in mind. If we take a look here at the bearish side in the diamonds, watch for that possibility of a pullback in here. And if we do pull back, we've got a little bit of price support maybe right through that area that we'll want to be watching pretty closely. If we were to pull back enough and break back down through there, that would raise maybe a little bit of concern. It would also give us that possibility that we just created a lower high in the diamond. So watch that carefully here today if we do see some selling. Let's take a look at our SPY. Our SPY left a massive gap behind here on that move up, and you can see we did pass right through that resistance here in the chart. It was big tech was really having a heyday yesterday again, as everyone rushing back in, all of a sudden seeming to remember to lose sight of the fact that we have a valuation problem in tech. But they didn't want to look at that yesterday. So watch this carefully right in here, pushing up into that area. We've got a little bit of a double whammy of resistance right there. So if the bulls can find inspiration, we need to push that right on through that area, maybe push up into here, and then we've got that potential that we can make all-time highs here in the SPY. Now, if the bears were to have anything to say, from this resistance here in the chart, you can see that possibility that this big zooming move may have been a little bit overbanked. And so this how this follows through today will be really critical. If we push back down and test this area of support and hold, I think we're fine. It would be if we push this lower and we drop in below yesterday's open, that's where we might have a little bit of worry or concern right in here, because if we fall into there, we run that risk that we could pull back. We've got good areas of price support in here that we could test, but we also have run that chance that we could fill this gap in here to the downside, creating that lower high here in the SPY. So watch that carefully. Very same thing here on QQQ, except QQQ had a little bit more challenge here in price action resistance right through here in that chart. So pushing right up into that resistance, right up into that trend break here in the chart, leaving a big gap behind yesterday. If the bulls can find inspiration here, we need to break through yesterday's high and break through this resistance up in here to that top side, unless we're going to just settle into a nice little consolidating move here, which is certainly possible. If the bears were to have anything to say, we can see this right in here could create that little lower high. If those bears were able to push us back down below yesterday's open, and then we run that risk that we could slip easily into filling that gap here to the downside. So watch that carefully in the Qs. And our IWM, big popping move yesterday, but it just kind of died on the vine. It just wasn't able to really get a whole lot going in there. So this morning we're breaking back down here in this gap down here, just below that area of support in the chart. If the bulls can shake that off, and ever reasonably they could, we could shake that off and push this on up. I would look for a break of yesterday's high point of that candle and a retest of this resistance up here. Possible breakout of there could really change things here on the day. But if we cannot follow through on that, if we were to pull back into this move here, I would look for possibly a retest of yesterday's low and maybe even a total gap fill on a pullback. Where it would really get ugly is if we break on down below there and we start coming back into this area of price support. So watch that carefully. Let's look at our VIX. Now our VIX pulled back substantially yesterday, gapping, pulling back. So fear really dropped out of the market, which honestly doesn't make any sense because not a whole lot changed yesterday. We really ignored the government being closed all the way through its closure, and now when we open it up, we get this big celebration, and tech surges back up into these extreme evaluations. So keep an eye on this. If the bears were to have anything to say, if we hold onto this area and try to bounce back up, well, right there could set up that higher low in the VIX. So keep an eye on that if that were the case. Remember, we've got a lot of data to catch up on and a lot of stress points here in the market that we're trying to ignore to continue to pump tech higher. Just watch that carefully. But if those bears, if the bulls can continue to show this enthusiasm and push this through, down through into here, that would really relieve some pressure. You've probably been noticing those bid-ask spreads and options are ridiculously priced right now, and even the market makers are concerned right now and raising the bid-ask spreads to protect even themselves here in this volatility. If we take a look at our T2122, T2122 bounced up nicely yesterday, pushing really strong. First thing in the open, we were clear up here, and then as we whipsawed the day, and double whipsawed the day, actually pushed up here past 75%. We're testing this resistance here in the chart. If the bulls can push on through there, I have a reason to believe we could be right back up here in that bearish reversal zone. If, however, the bears were to have anything to say, certainly could see that little bit of a resting pullback after such a big move yesterday. Maybe we could pull back, but we've opened up a big opportunity for the bears to work if they decide to grab a hold of anything. And then if we take a look at our T2108, T2108 did make it up, but boy, it struggled here most of the day. T2108 was flat to a little bit lower. Pushing up here by the end of the day, we're coming back up to retest that 40% area here in the chart. And with a good bullish push today, hey, we could be right up through there, no problem at all. So watch that carefully here. That would be a nice little recovery off of this double bottom in here. But if the bears were to have anything to say and grab on here, then maybe a push back in here. We might test in here in this range in the middle, but a push down into here could be pretty important for those bears. And if we were to break these lows, that would be real problematic here. So watch that carefully in T2108. T2107, very much the same thing. We had a nice little push up here yesterday. Notice we get this little tiny hook in here. And most of the day, this was struggling to move up. As a matter of fact, the good portion of the day, it was actually lower. But we pushed up right there at the end of the day. We've got this little hook right in here, trying to push up toward that mid area between 45 and 50%. If those bulls can really get something going here, I see every reason to believe we could stretch up here into that 50% area, test some of this resistance up here. But if the bears were to come back into play, maybe back down here around 45%, and where it would get ugly is if we broke back down through that area here with a bearish push. So watch that carefully. And then T2101, here's our major problem. Our breadth continued to decline yesterday. So as we were pushing with these big numbers to the upside and leaving that giant gap behind in the market, we actually saw weaker breadth here on the day overall. So far we have not been able to see those bulls really provide participation, not participation and breadth in here to really warrant confidence on that bullish side, which gives us that opportunity, as I mentioned yesterday, for whipsaws, which we did have. We whipsawed down, whipsawed back up. We did it on light volume, and now we're going into a pseudo holiday. Everybody's going to be working today, but just kind of keep in mind here, if the bears were to have anything to say today, we could really ruffle the feathers in some of those technicals here in the chart. We need to see, when those bulls push, we need to see the breadth, not just a handful of companies. We need to see the breadth coming into the market, or we're going to run into that situation that one day the big break could occur to the downside. So watch that carefully. Let's take a look at our economic calendar here for today. And our economic calendar, well, we've got a couple of things that we need to be thinking about here, but that's it. A couple of things. We've got an NFIB Small Business Optimism report in here. That report is already out. Came in at 98.2. That's just slightly lower than what the consensus was suggesting, and it is declining from the 98.8 from last time. And we have Michael Barr speaking today, and that's it. It is an extremely light day on the economic calendar. And when we look into Wednesday, not a whole lot more except mortgage applications and bond auctions and a whole bunch of Fed talk in there. So not a whole lot, but Fed conversation in there tomorrow. If we take a look at our earnings calendar, wow, our earnings calendar is quite light today. There we are. Not much going on in here. Now, there are, of course, more earnings reports than that. These are the notables for the day. Not a whole lot to be worried about here today. Let's run through those really quickly. SE reporting this morning, looks like that one's moving a little bit lower. SFL, that one's trying to nibble a little bit higher, but I think we're waiting on that earnings report. When you look at the bid-ask spread and it's that wide, probably hasn't reported yet. And WIFI are really the only notables here for this morning. So kind of keep that one in mind. Not much going on here to be concerned about this morning. If we take a look at this afternoon, we're going to see DOX, CAE, NNE, OKLO, and Stub. And those are your notables for this afternoon. So don't be too surprised unless we have some major news reports that inspire the market. We could be a little bit choppy today with a lot of folks maybe just observing the holiday. So watch that carefully. Let's take by the way, earnings do ramp up again tomorrow. We've got a reasonable number tomorrow, any reasonable number on Thursday as well. So we will pick this back up here. Let's take a look at some stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, if you could do me that quick favor, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, if you could please support the channel by clicking that bell icon when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. Click that thumbs up button, leave a brief comment. That helps the channel to grow. Thank you for everyone who takes the time to do that. I know on a daily video like this, it gets awfully monotonous, but remember, even an emoji counts. So thank you so much for everyone who does support the channel that way. And then, of course, if you share these videos out on your social media feed, truly appreciate that as well. Let's take a look at some of these stocks that could be setting up. Remember, they're not recommendations to buy or sell any security. You need to do your own due diligence. Be very, very careful in this market. And remember, anything is possible here when we have so much uncertainty going on in the overall market. Let's take a look at, I mentioned this yesterday, and it tried to go yesterday. Apple popped up here, broke the alert first thing in the morning on that stretch in tech, and then just kind of ended up fading back into that resting pattern. So watch that carefully here on Apple. I think that is a beautiful setup in Apple, looking really good to the upside. And it's pretty difficult to look at anything in Google and see bearishness. Still in that beautiful upside trend, popped nicely yesterday. We are getting a little pullback this morning, which may suggest that we may have to rest back in here toward this trend. Don't be surprised if that occurs, but watch that carefully on Google. Still a very, very bullish chart. Tesla is trying to push back up through this resistance. Started down yesterday, fought back, closed positive. Watch this area of resistance. It needs to break back through up there. AMD did break back through some resistance here in the chart on that gap up. It is pulling back this morning, but watch that carefully. If it can hold in here, then we may eventually build that energy to push that right on through to the upside. So keep an eye on some of those big techs. They're not terrible stocks at all. It's just that they're so heavily overvalued at the moment. Let's take a look at some metals and mining in here. VALE continues to look very, very good here to the upside, looking strong, and I think there's every reason to believe the way we're looking at silver and gold and things like that moving higher right now that we could see some of these miners, VALE. Take a look at like GDX, the miners out here, ETF. You can just drop into that sector. There's a lot going on in here in that sector, looking pretty good. You can take a look at the juniors. Whoops, I got to type it right. Look at the junior miners. They really popped up in here. Little rest, little pullback, set up an opportunity there. Once again, drop into that sector. There's an awful lot going on in here, showing quite a bit of bullishness in the market. So I would watch some of those pretty closely in here. I would also keep an eye. Take a look at. I would have bought Roku yesterday. I was looking at the options. It's just that the options are ridiculously high priced in the bid-ask spread. It's like $2 or $3 in spread on Roku options in here. So watch that carefully. If I were going to buy it, I'm not going to spend that kind of money in slippage. I'd just buy the stock. Watch that carefully in here. This could be wedging in here. Watch this resistance in the chart, but if we can get a little bit of bullishness going in here, I see that opportunity that could push right on through here. So keep an eye on Roku. That's looking pretty good. Keep an eye on FedEx. FedEx, strong pullback yesterday, but really nothing in here wrong. Coming back here into some support and trend. Watch that carefully. Those bulls can step up in here on FedEx. And I would continue to keep an eye on UPS. UPS pulled back pretty hard yesterday in that move, but you see it really didn't change anything. It's just volatility in the market right now expressing itself in some pretty big moves. But if we can hold in this area and see those bulls step up, I think there may be an opportunity here to be watching. You might also want to be keeping an eye on these natural gas plays here in the market. UNG, nice little break higher here, and this may have to consolidate against this resistance all the way over to here, but watch that carefully. I think at any point in time we might see that natural gas start to move through out of this basing pattern to the upside. Keep an eye on UNG, and of course Boyle, mentioned that first thing here. Now this would be drawn pretty much the same way. I just drew this a little bit differently and put that alert in for an early alert on that. But look at this nice little tight consolidation that's happening in here in that range, trying to hold. Again, this might have to rest, may even have to pull back into this trend, but look for that next opportunity somewhere along in here for Boyle to maybe push on through. Could be some nice opportunities in there. And then take a look at our financials. Our financials making a move here yesterday, pumping through that downtrend. We'll want to watch that carefully, trying to recover some support here on those financials. So if they can hold up in here, and that's going to be important, we're really going to need those financials if we're going to stay bullish here in the market. And we've been seeing some signs of concerns with I think it's about $3 trillion in operations now on the repo market in here. So Yeah, watch that carefully here. Maybe some signs of a little bit of stress in some of the banks. Watch that carefully. But boy, when you take a look at a stock like Morgan Stanley, it's hard to see that as anything other than very, very bullish in that possibility that Morgan could push right on through here to the upside. Goldman, nice push right up through this resistance here yesterday. Now, this has been really volatile. You can see awfully wicky up here. This is what I call a fuzzy top, because you can see all of these wicks up here. It's like an old flat top haircut in here. We can see where the sellers are. But if we can get a little bit of bullishness going in here, I think there is a chance that could push on through here to the upside. Keep an eye on Goldman. Bank of America continues to look good in here, holding, resting. Again, a little bit of a fuzzy top up here, but watch that carefully if that can push on through. And even Citibank setting up in here after breaking that downtrend in here, holding in that consolidating pattern, pounding against this resistance here in the chart. Boy, I think there's every reason to believe that might be able to pick up and push right on through here. So watch that carefully if that pumps out and it gets going here to the upside. Worth paying attention to, I believe. So keep an eye on a lot of these. You know, Intel continues to hold in here nice. There's nothing wrong with Intel as it rests here in this consolidating pattern. Worth paying attention to. Things like Ford, nice little resting consolidation in here. That has that opportunity that could push on through to the upside. So it's not like we're out of stocks that are holding good patterns. We've got quite a few that are looking very, very bullish and could move on through here to the upside. GE had a nice move yesterday that could push on through here to the upside. IBM is setting up in here. So there's a lot of good looking charts out there to be paying attention to, but we just have that little bit of concern of breadth. We're just not getting enough participation. Now that might change, and it can change in just a half a breath. That could turn around and change. But keep a close eye on that. As long as that breadth remains weak, we run the risk of substantial whipsaws in the market. So plan your risk carefully. And remember, cash is a position. You do not have to put money at risk in high volatile markets and wide bid-ask spreads in options. You can stand aside and protect your capital and wait for better days to put your money back to work. So with that, everyone, hey, I want to wish you all a fantastic day. I want to wish you great results in your trading. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. I'll see you right back here bright and early Wednesday morning. And once again, happy Veterans Day to all those who have served our country. You honor us all, and I truly, truly appreciate that. Myself, Army veteran, and I understand that sacrifice. So thank you, everyone who has served, and to all of our veterans, hats off today. Appreciate it. Y'all take care. Have a great day, and I'll see you right back here bright and early Wednesday morning. Wish you all the best.
Black and white candles, my stars in the dark. Price is my king, got that fire and spark. Rideways my ranch on the trader's trail. Trading with heart where the profits prevail.